Ted, you want to start us off?
Maintenance day.
You got good contributions, it seemed like, from all four lines last night. How important was that? Are you starting to see some progress in that regard? You're getting some consistency in that way?
I think we're starting to see some progress. I think we have, at different times throughout the year. I think, a number of guys I thought played well up and down our lineup, both on forward and D. I think the key is it's an everyday league, and I think the difference between young guys being really, really impactful players and not is being able to do it on a night to night basis. And so, the challenge, I thought a number of guys played really good against Minnesota. I thought some of those same guys did not play that well against Calgary, and then they played good last night, but it can't be every other night. So they got to find a way to come tomorrow night and have their A game.
Joe Levy played his first game. How did he grade out?
I thought he did a solid job. I thought he did a good job. He was strong defensively. He moved the puck well, and so I thought, it's a hard. He hasn't played much hockey over the last couple of years, and he went through a number of injuries, and ultimately, he's practiced with us a little bit, but to walk into game action and being, against a pretty high power offensive team, I thought he did a good job.
How do you handle the goaltending right now, Jeff? I mean,
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what do you do, or what can you do right now?
Well, just like anybody, I think you just work, and you go out and you kind of keep working at certain things. And I think from a coaching perspective, you focus on making sure that you're minimizing the chances against and doing a good job that way. And if you do that, I think you help your goalies put them in the position to be successful, and then they got to do the job themselves. And again, part of that's just, going out and working and continue to get better.
Is the defense, team defense, or whatnot, is that just blowing assignments right now? Is it sort of mental?
Well, I watch hockey every night, and there's chances every game, and so, like, for us to pretend like we're not going to give up any chances would be, a fallacy. Would be living in a bit of a dream world, especially, against a team like that can self-create. I actually think, certainly think our D-zone coverage overall has been better. I think we've done a better job of that. We still have to get better, I think, on our net front battles. But you're going to give up some chances, and we've just been in a cycle where when we give up the chances that they're going in, and that's not always because of goals. It's just the way it's going right now. So I think at some point that starts to turn back in your favor. But I think we've been better defensively over the last stretch, and it hasn't shown in the goals against. But from a process standpoint, I think we've been better.
Last one, you had Quinn.
Yeah.
Are you at all surprised how he's progressed, or is this about what you thought type of player he was going to be?
I'm not surprised at all. I had him as going into his draft the first year. I had him before the draft, and I was very, very impressed with him. One, he loves hockey. He's quietly very competitive. He's not an outwardly competitive, but he's very competitive. But he also got better. Like we talked about a couple of things going into that tournament, and by the end he was better at those things, including his shot. His shot's really improved, and he's become an elite offensive defenseman in the league, and so it doesn't surprise me at all that he's having the success he's having. Yeah.
Daniela?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily. I mean, certainly I think now he's moved into, like a practice like today that wasn't, really, really physically grueling, but he basically did everything. You start to kind of move towards hopefully light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't have like a number of weeks or anything like that. But I think it's a positive that he's put himself in position where he took part, even though he was in a different jersey, a non-contact jersey, a fairly full practice.
Helene St. James?
Jeff, what with Taro Hirose, what's his biggest challenge to, not being a call up but being on the roster?
I think ultimately you got to prove over a period of time, and he's got to get that opportunity, but over a period of time that you're going to make the team better. And a lot of guys can play on teams especially teams that are non-playoff teams. You know, there's a number of players that can play on those teams. Are you a player that can push us towards being closer to a playoff team? Can you really be impactful? And you know, ultimately, you know, power play is one area. Made a real nice play to Zadina last night, so that's certainly one area where I think he can separate himself. You know, can he have ultimately can he have a great summer and continue to build his body up a little bit, because that's something he's always going to battle. He's not strong, he's not big, he's not fast, so that's not easy to play in the NHL that way and be a really impactful player in a good team. So can he build that up a bit? You know, he's very, very smart, very smart hockey player. So just be as impactful as possible, that you're showing that you can help us be a better hockey team.
Is there, I remember, I mean, back when he came in, I think you had him on a line with Vanagon and Nilsson, two cerebral players. Like, is there also, he needs to be with certain players to be successful or be on a power play? Is that kind of a thing as there as well?
Well, I think ultimately for sure power play. You know, I think the hard part for guys that are kind of in those spots is you don't just kind of come up and necessarily go right on a top line, and so you got to prove that you can be an effective player on different lines and then really shine on the power play. So, you know, he was out there at the end of the game 6-on-5. He was on the power play last night, and when he's in the lineup, he'll certainly get the opportunities on the power play, and we'll see how he does.
And just so everybody who played last night, is available tomorrow. Is that?
As I sit here today, I anticipate everybody I played last night will be available tomorrow, but you know how this league is.
I do. Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Max Bultman.
Jeff, how close do you think Vrana is right now to kind of be in the, I mean, at whatever normal looks like in physical situations?
Well, I'd start by saying, well, in physical situations, yeah, I don't think it's a matter of it being physical situations. I think it's getting his game, you know, to a high level. And I'd start by saying, you know, I can't sit here. I've only coached him a little bit, you know, so what his highest level is, you know, I'm still learning. And by that, I don't necessarily, he can shoot a puck great and he can shoot a puck in the net, and can he fill out the rest of his game and become, you know, complete. That's still areas that he's working at. And there's some of that systematic probably, you know, and learning and being comfortable in the systems. I think the biggest thing, Max, isn't necessarily the physical part of it. It's just missing that much hockey. And now all of a sudden the league's ramped up. Teams are trying like crazy to make the playoffs, and it's hard to go from 0 to 100. So it'll take him some time here. I mean, he's going to have some really good games. He's going to have some games where he's not up to speed yet. And we're going to work through all those situations and hopefully get him up to as full speed as possible, and certainly get him in a position to, you know, hopefully excel as he moves forward.
Thanks.
Yep. Last question, Ansar Khan.
Yeah, Jeff, what are you seeing from Suter here over these last several weeks? The offense hasn't been coming, and I'm just wondering, you know, he's a guy that isn't fully accustomed to the long NHL grind. I think only played 50 some games last season. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I do. I think, you know what, he's never been in this kind of grind. You know, last season was different. First of all, it was probably a little bit easier in a sense that the travel was easier. And now he's getting into games played that was beyond what he's ever done in the NHL and probably what he's ever done in pro hockey. And certainly at the level that, you know, he's been tasked with. You know, he's out against a lot of the other team's best a lot of nights, you know, him and Larks. And so it's hard. I thought last night was one of his better games in a while. I thought he played much better than he had in the previous couple of weeks. Him and I've talked about it. You know, I think part of it is just confidence. Part of it is, you know, when you start to struggle a little bit in this league, it's hard to pull your way out of it at times. And you got to kind of not overthink it and just go play. And that's what he did last night. And I thought he did a good job with it.
Is that something for players like that? I know he's not a rookie, second-year guy, but for other rookies too, they just have to experience it and kind of work themselves out of it, or just get used to it. And is that the only way that you can really kind of get used to something like that?
I can just tell you, like, I remember my first year as an assistant in the league, and I was like, what is happening right now? Like it's unlike any other challenge that you face. And so, yeah, you become, now it's just normal, and you become accustomed to it. And until you go through it, it's impossible to go through it. So as you go through it, you learn. And again, I think you get used to it and become accustomed to it. And so, the fact he's going through it, the fact, and not just, rookies, but young players, and especially as they start to get into bigger roles. Michael Rasmussen's played through a bit of a full season, but now he's really starting. Now he's on the ice in a lot of important situations. It takes time. It's being so on top of your game every night in this league. Because if you slip a little bit, boy, it's not good enough, especially if you're not like the elite of the elite. So it's just a learned process that our guys are going through, and that they're going to grow from. In the interim, there's going to be some nights where they're not as good, and you want to minimize those as you're learning, and hopefully it pays dividends in the future.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's it for us today. Thanks, everyone.